Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have 5 stories for you from the NuclearRevenge subreddit. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Mace Valve. Town forced to bulldoze new development after building on land they don't own. Hi Reddit, I've got one gem of a story that my grandfather told me about his hometown after he came home from World War II. It has to do with the tree farmer, a corrupt mayor, and over 20 homes getting bulldozed. Enjoy! At the end of World War II, thousands of troops were heading home, starting new families, and wanted to move out of the city. There was a major housing boom all around the county. People couldn't move out of the cities fast enough, and developers could not build homes fast enough. There was a ton of money to be made in the construction business, which led to some underhanded building practices. One such practice was starting construction before the land acquisition was finalized. Enter my grandfather. After serving as a pilot during the war, he came home to a very different town. When my grandfather went off to fight in 1942, the town that he described leaving was tired and worn down. But to his amazement, the town he saw stepping off the train in 1948 was anything but. Newly paved roads, a traffic light, and new homes. New homes that just went on and on. He actually got lost on his way back to the family farm due to the new main town road being rerouted while he was away. But what took him by surprise the most was the new development being built on his childhood friend John's tree farm. This was surprising to him, mainly because he knew how much the farm meant to John and his family. The farm went back at least 2 generations. But my grandfather just guessed that the developer made John's family an offer too good to refuse. However, that thought was shot down later that evening during his welcome home dinner back home. It was my great-grandmother who tipped him off that something was off. He couldn't recall exactly what she said, but it was something along the lines of, "Oh, I just wish John was still alive to be here." My grandfather nearly choked, not because of the news, but because John was not dead. He was still in Hawaii. My grandfather had gotten a postcard from him not but 4 days before. Turns out while John was off in the Navy fighting in the Pacific Theater, John's dad had suffered a stroke and passed away, and his mother passed away less than a week later from a broken heart. More than likely, John was never informed of their passing, and now 20 plus homes were being built on their land. My grandfather about ran out of the house, jumped in his father's Model T, and raced down into town to send one bombshell of a telegraph to John in Hawaii. "John, your folks passed. Farm now being built on. Come quick, grandfather." My grandfather never got a response back. He figures that John must have fainted from shock, then jumped up and ran to the Navy base to get on the first boat home, because he was back home in less than 4 days, and he was mad. According to my grandfather, when he burst through the doors of the mayor's office, everyone in the room looked like they were about to drop dead. The poor desk clerk was fumbling over his words, trying to talk to John. Then, the mayor came out of his office to see what all the commotion was about. As soon as he saw John, he went white as a sheet, then ran back into his office and locked the door. Getting nowhere at the mayor's office, John went to the next town over and hired a lawyer. What followed was a 7-year court case that ended in the mayor being sentenced to 8 years in jail and the developer going bankrupt. Turns out that after John's parents passed away, John wasn't able to be contacted for some reason and was just assumed dead. So when an out-of-state developer wanted to build homes in the area, the mayor just permitted them to start building on John's farm for a hefty kickback, of course. Also, because of John's lawsuit, the developer couldn't finish the pre-sold homes, which ended up in more lawsuits. In the end, the mayor and the developer and the town ended up having to pay John close to $45,000 total, which is over $752,000 today. And then, the farm had to be returned to its prior condition. To say John was happy would be a vast understatement. Today, John's tree farm is a nature reserve, and the story of the corrupted mayor is all but forgotten, except for by a few locals. John passed away in 1999. My grandfather has been back to his hometown a few times to visit his grave and to check on the old tree farm. Thanks for reading. Sorry if it reads rough. Writing is not my strong point, but this tale of revenge was just too good not to post. Thanks. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Short187. It says, I love that the mayor just ran away after seeing John. He knew how screwed he was the second he laid eyes on him. Probably ran away to contact the shady builders. Hand clap for John. Yeah, you know what this mayor was doing? He was back in his office shaking in his boots because he knew he was about to lose everything. This was another case of FAFO, F around and find out. People really do get blinded by dollar signs, and it's really sad that that's what runs the world these days. It does kind of make me wonder how they weren't able to contact John though, especially if he was actively enlisted. That one seems a little bit odd. This story comes to us from Outrageous Duck 164. Mess with my kids? Lose your house. I've, 50 male, got 2 stepsons, who I just call my sons, as I've been in their life since they were 8 and 10, and are now young men. My wife and I made it a point to have a great relationship with their dad, Jason, and made sure he had a chance to be around as much as possible, even staying at our place frequently to be around his boys, as he lived over an hour away and couldn't afford to live closer. Jason had a crazy ex-girlfriend who had tried to claim they were married, variously saying common law or that they were married in secret or married on an Indian reservation. But he had a restraining order out against her because she was nuts and had tried various ways to screw up his life. The ex is a horrible person. She had been arrested several times for forgery and fraud. She and Jason had a fiery relationship, but he had it in his head that he should make it work as he did like her daughters and grandson. But the ex got him sent to prison for violating his probation when he left the county to go to his mom's funeral and hadn't filed an appropriate form. I'm a little unclear on this part, but she played a major role in it. After he got out several months later, she wanted him back and he wasn't having it. He made a clean break, moved to a new town, but she continued to harass him, thus leading to the restraining order. She would send texts to people pretending to be police investigating, saying he was drunk driving or taking drugs, or pretending to be friends and family to spread rumors and hurt him. She even sent texts to my kids from burner phones, pretending to be other family or friends, saying awful things about their dad. Jason died unexpectedly of a heart attack, and it was a shock to all of us. He was finally living in peace, had a great relationship with friends and his sons, and was the happiest he had ever been. He didn't have much. He lived in a single wide trailer a friend had let him stay in for free. Some boxes of tools, old comics, video games, D&D books and modules, mementos from his times in the Marines, and an old 2009 pickup, which on several occasions he had promised my oldest son, let's call him Paul. Jason didn't have a will, and my wife became the executor of the estate because, at the time of death, both the sons were minors and sole heirs. We packed up the things out of Jason's trailer and took the truck, which had Jason's name on the title, but had to wait for the death certificate to retitle it in Paul's name. But the ex called Jason's sister, demanding the truck, saying it was hers, and posting on Facebook she was reporting it as stolen, etc., which really pissed me off. After we got the death certificate, we went to the DMV and found out that she had stolen the title to the truck by forgery, saying she was the only heir, and we couldn't transfer the title. My son was driving around with a packet documenting everything in case he was pulled over for driving a stolen vehicle. We had to get a lawyer and start a special process that took several months before a director at the DMV fixed it, and we were able to title the truck with the ex continuing to threaten and cause problems and made everyone miserable and cost us several thousand in legal fees. Early last year, we got through probate court. The ex never showed, in spite of saying that she was the wife and sole heir. The court declared the boys as the sole heirs and my wife as executor of the estate in their names. Instead of showing up, the ex sent an email to the court saying she couldn't make it because of work. She doesn't have a job. And that Jason was never around his kids. He didn't miss a single high school football game home or away and never missed a home track meet. And that they were just leeching off his SSI for the back child support. She went on with a bunch of other non-relevant crap just to trash my wife and sons, and pretty much said it didn't matter what the judge said, that she should get everything. During this time, we found out that Jason's name was on the deed of the ex's house, in order to get a reduction in property taxes because of Jason's disabled veteran status. She had filed papers to put him on the deed, but not the mortgage. If she had just left my kids alone, we would have let it go, but she had pushed principal beyond the point of denial. So we filed suit for half the house. Property is worth about $380,000. We went to court, ordered mediation, and she rejected a mediated settlement of a fraction of the value, which we would have taken. In April, her lawyer dropped her, and so she got a continuance on the first hearing. She then claimed that she had found a will from Jason, designating her as sole heir, in addition to another signed paper that she found as a quitclaim deed from Jason for the house. I did wonder if it was this or her not paying him, which caused him to drop her. She was going to go back to probate court to reopen or appeal probate and needed time for that, which the judge granted. On Tuesday, finally went to court on the deed to the house. She no-showed. The judge had inquiries to the probate court, and she never filed any papers. The trial lasted less than 10 minutes, as the judge recorded the facts and awarded the estate half the property. They will impanel 3 lawyers to determine how the property will be sold, and she's going to lose her house, and for the first time in her miserable life, face the consequences of her actions. F around and find out. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Monkey Monks. It says, "Congratulations for winning the case. Sad Jason wasn't around anymore to see his kids growing up. You and your wife done a tremendous job being parents to the kids. Pray this case will end soon." Well, OP, I think it's time to make sure you have a security system on your house, or maybe an order of protection, because this person that you just took a house from is really not going to be happy about it. If there's one thing to take away from this whole story, it's that if you don't have a will already, get one made up, because it makes things so much easier on people after you're gone. Speaking of which, I don't have one myself, so I'm gonna go get that made up now. Bye! This story comes to us from C Supermarket 9728. Knock down a grade 2 listed building without permission? Have the council planner's office deny all your applications for the next 99 years. I lived in a large village as a child. The village contained 4 shops, a post office, 2 pubs, a church, a primary school, and a really old grade 2 listed school. The Victorian school had been used as a library when I was a small child, but then was bought by a local business owner. Anyone who lives in the UK knows there are very strict rules regarding what you can do with a grade 2 building. Number 1 rule is you can't do anything with it without planning permission. But this businessman thought he was above the law and knocked the school down one day without consent. The council gave him a huge fine at the time, but that was only the start. I audited the planning office last year and came across the file on this plot of land. In the past 40 years, the owner has submitted 11 plans to build on the land and has been denied every time. There is a note outlining the first offense and legal documents reminding planners that no building will be permitted on the land for the next 99 years. The owner knows this but keeps trying. There are notes on many failed legal actions taken. There's also a caveat that if the land is sold, all new applications will also be denied to the new owners. I also saw a recent request for the owner to repair the fencing and clean up the site as it was a health and safety issue, and he will be fined if he doesn't comply. So the owner is now left with a plot of land he can't build on, and he can't sell it because nobody in our area wants land you can't build on. I also noticed that the same businessman was building houses in the same borough, and the council came out and made him move the footings of all 12 houses because they were not quite in the position agreed by the council planners. It must have cost him thousands. The moral of the story is, people may not have long memories, but the local government does. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Swiggy1957. It says, "Tell him that I'll give him $1 for the land. What would I do with the land? Turn it over to the local government to make a public park. It would be an improvement over what they have. and anything constructed there for the public good may even get the planners okay with the local council approving everything. A pavilion for public functions, a small pond for aesthetics, and playground equipment for local children to enjoy. Right now, the guy has to maintain the property, including taxes, and at the end of the 99 years, won't be around to reap the benefits. Your planners will still have years and years to make his life as miserable as they can. This reminds me of another story I heard a while ago where the guy knocked down an old pub, and he was forced to rebuild it brick by brick. I'm amazed they didn't make him do that for this building as well, because they're usually really stringent about the listed buildings in the UK. This story comes to us from Britty Bird. Guy tries to sell house from under my family, gets his just desserts. On mobile, and this is a story from when I was a kid, so apologies for formatting and not having complete details. My family was looking for a large house and found the perfect one back in the early 2000s. When my dad talked with the owners, they had agreed to getting some plumbing fixed on the house before we moved in if we moved all of their stuff into the 2-car garage, so it would be easier for them to move. There was also several things to be repaired, a pool to clean, and a ton of landscaping to be done. My dad did the repairs and used his army of offspring to do all the landscaping, pool work, etc. The house was looking amazing compared to before, and we were a week from moving in. Now, I to this day do not know why my dad did this, but he had paid a cash deposit. There was no paper trail, and the owners decided to take advantage of this. When it got to be a few days before we moved in, the owners told my dad they weren't moving their stuff out of the garage or doing the plumbing fixes that were needed to use any of the bathtubs or showers in the house. He could deal with no garage and pay for the plumbing fixes, or he could F off. No refund of deposit if he didn't like it. They even said they were thinking of moving someone else in because the house value was more with all the fixes we had already done. My father asked to turn in the keys we had been given the next morning because this was all told to him at 8 p.m. on a weekday. With no paperwork yet signed, there was nothing attaching my dad to the house, and no cameras or security system. He had just been effed over a few $1,000s by the owner, and it was maybe 2 weeks to Christmas. His gift that year was going to be giving each of us kids our own rooms for the first time. Cue revenge. He brought all of us kids over to the house for a little party. Each kid was given their own special bit of destruction. Someone was shoveling sand into the pool. My brother with anger issues was told to punch out every hole we had patched up in the walls. The smaller kids were told to rock the banister on the stairs until it broke. I was told to rip out the landscaping we had done and make a path of it all over the stairs. Every single thing we had fixed or improved taken back by very creative and energetic children. While all this happened, my dad and stepmom went through everything in the garage from the owners and took anything they could gift to family, pawn, or sale. There were high-value collectibles, jewelry, and a computer that my dad gave to us for Christmas. The next day, my dad told the owners he had put the keys in the garage with its door open that night for them. He then unplugged the phone, and we never heard from those people again. Was it legal? No, not on either end. Did we have a good Christmas? Yes. Was it fun destroying the place? Yes. I actually did a very tastefully done carpet of hedge branches, torn our flowers, and some of our sand and pool gravel on the actual carpet of the house. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called McCrack. It says, "Stuff like this is why I'm terrified to attempt to buy a for sale by owner property that says absolutely no realtors for the buying property or doing handshake and verbal deeds. I don't know enough to be able to spot things that would F me royally." Yep, that's exactly it. There's a reason that people like realtors exist, because they know a lot of things that we don't about the process of buying and selling houses. So it makes more sense to go through one of them, unless you have real estate experience yourself, obviously. One final point, could you imagine being the kids in this case? I mean, yeah, it'd be a lot of fun to get to destroy stuff, but that's not really setting a good example for those kids going forward. Like, hey, this person screwed me over, so I'm gonna destroy all their stuff. Not so sure about that one. This story comes to us from Ultimate Odie. My ex-fiance refused to respect my boundaries, so I married his best friend. Back in 2019, I had just moved my long-term partner into my house due to a series of poor life choices on his end. It had been a rocky relationship for most of its duration, but I was young and dumb. I believed this was him wanting to commit and truly start our lives. By early 2020, we were engaged. I was a full-time university student, sole caretaker for my mentally disabled mother, and taking care of the house and our pets. He worked a standard 40 hours a week, minimum wage job, and refused to help with any aspect of life. I found out on Christmas Day 2020 he had been unfaithful and had forgotten to tell me. He was planning on leaving me but had informed everyone except for me because he was failing to secure a new residence. Apparently, his F-buddy didn't like him enough to let him move in. At this point, it was very little love lost, and I expected he would be moving out within the coming weeks. Fast forward 3 entire months, and his search for a living place was non-existent, and he was acting more and more entitled. Clearly, by this point, he is an unwelcome freeloader who has taken up residence in my living room. I was about to secure an eviction notice to get him off of my couch. He began swiping Tinder with his phone volume loudly on. I told him to not do that in my presence as it was highly insensitive to do in my home, and he could do it in private. This continued, so I told him I would sleep with one of his friends. It was said in a moment of anger and was more of an empty threat at the time. However, I am known for seeing goals to their completion. I messaged the guy who was supposedly my ex's best friend and the best man for the wedding. It turns out he didn't even consider my ex a close friend, and my ex had acted similarly terrible to this guy previously as well. We bonded over our terrible experience, hit it off really well in general, and started dating. I was upfront about what the catalyst for me to reach out to him was. After 2 years of dating, we were married April 2nd. He watched me graduate with that bachelor's degree my ex disliked. I'm halfway through my master's, and my husband works in a specialized steady field that supports us. Last I heard, my ex got kicked out of his dad's house, never was able to officially date his side chick, and has not made any choices to better his life. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called HumanWalk9801. It says, "We all want to know what happened when you and the best friend first started dating. What was the ex's reaction, and how did you kick him out?" OP responded to this one and said, "The ex tried to play the victim card, and everyone around him told him to suck it up. He knew I was in the process of starting an eviction, so he decided to actually make arrangements and get out." OP, that was probably the best thing you could have asked for, your ex actually making arrangements to get out afterwards. It's almost like they realized they couldn't take advantage of you anymore and decided they finally needed to move on. Check out all 5 OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.